It's Wednesday, July 1st, 2015 at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is Higher Ed Special Edition. I'm your host, Erin Spinka. I'm Social Media Manager for Dartmouth College, and earlier this week, Higher Ed professionals from marketing, design, developing, coding, social media, and management gathered in Tuscaloosa, Alabama at the University of Alabama to talk shop at the regional HighEdWeb conference. If you missed out on the conference, don't worry. We're joined by speakers and committee members today to get a quick recap from them. But first, Higher Ed's Special Edition is part of the Higher Ed Live Network, offering viewers direct access to the best and brightest minds in education. Live webcasts allow viewers to share knowledge and participate in the discussions and around the most important issues in the industry. All episodes of Higher Ed Live are free and accessible in the video archives at higheredlive.com and in podcast form on iTunes. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a marketing and communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. Two never-before-released chapters from M. Stoner's books, Social Works and Follow the Leader, are now available for download as audio chapters. We're tweeting out a link where you can download these chapters for free and learn more about M. Stoner's helpful resources. And so now I'd like to welcome our guests for this afternoon's show. So we have three today, and they're all conveniently at the same place. We have Rachel Carden, a web developer in the Division of Student Affairs at the University of Alabama. She was both a speaker and a committee member for the conference. We have Andrew Richardson, Marketing and Communications Manager in the Office of Information Technology at the University of Alabama, and he was a speaker. And we have Rachel Thompson, Director of Emerging Technology and Accessibility at the University of Alabama, and she also was a speaker and a committee member. For those of you who are watching along, please don't hesitate to ask questions or to check out the resources that we'll be sharing using the hashtag HigherEdLive. And I'll do my best to ask the questions as they come in. So for now, I want to get started and kind of just get a little bit of background from Rachel on what was your role with the conference planning? Can you just give a little bit of insight of what you kind of were in charge of?
I'll dive in. I was the chair, and so my background is that basically I have been a HighEdWeb member for about 4 years, and I've gone to the national conference for the last 4 years, and loved every minute. And I just love the community, and I love the events and the sessions, and I always get to take away so much. And so it's always been kind of in the back of my mind, these regionals, and how awesome it would be to kind of bring that energy home and provide it for some folks in our area. And so last year when I was in Portland at the conference, and they were advertising, if you want to have a regional, get involved, here's, look out for a blog post, I think it was. And like a month later, there it came, and I took all the information and I took it back to kind of a team that we already had here on campus for professional development, and kind of pitched it to them. Guys, we should put this proposal in. We should try to bring that here. And of course, and they were all gung-ho excited, and we worked on it and worked hard. And I think it was due like Thanksgiving Day, and we were all excited. And then we got the news in January, and went from there. And it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of work, but it was quite the adventure, and we're really excited how it turned out.
Yeah, it was really great. I have recently joined the campus web community that Rachel was talking about, and through that learned about this event and volunteered to help with technology coordination. And my office is actually in the building where we held the event. And so that was really convenient. And so, a few 16-hour days later, right, we're finally recovering from it. But it was a really, really great experience. We had people from all over the place.
We had 9 different states, including a speaker from New York, which was pretty cool. And so we had folks from Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, obviously, Mississippi, and Arkansas. Did I say Tennessee? Yes. And I'm not sure I included everyone, and New York. So it was a lot, and we had 118 people, which was really great. Our goal was 75. So we were really proud of ourselves and really pumped. For the first year, we were thrilled with the amount of people.
No, that sounds like a great turnout. How many sessions did you guys have?
We had 16. We had 2 rooms, and so 8 blocks, and then the keynote. So.
Now, you talked a little bit about why and how you decided on hosting a regional, but was there any other reasons that you wanted to mention about how you got involved with it or why regionals are important. It's a newer thing that HighEdWeb has been doing, and I really think it helps bring what the national is doing on a really high level to more locally, so that more people get touched by all of these different geniuses, basically, who are sharing their work and their information. So can you talk a little bit more about why the regional was really helpful?
I thought, so they really haven't had one of their main conferences in our part of the country. The closest that they've really been is Austin, Texas. That was my first one. So in my mind, it was like, I don't really think that they have quite the reach in our part of the country that they do, maybe, especially like in the Northeast where they are kind of originated from. And so I thought it would be amazing to kind of help share the love, spread the awesome to our part of the world. And so, and I think that anything that I can do to kind of help that, but also in turn to kind of bring that another level of professional development to not only folks here at UA, but to other folks in the region. And we had about 20 different institutions. And I know that a fair amount of people that attended had probably never even heard of HighEdWeb before, much less attended a national conference. So they got this great kind of taste of what it's like. And hopefully that will kind of keep the interest going and maybe bring some of them to the national one in Milwaukee this fall. That would be amazing. I know that I will be at the one in Milwaukee, and one of our other speakers has been selected to speak in Milwaukee, so that's awesome. And so if we can bring along some new minds to Milwaukee with us in the fall and in future events, that would be pretty cool.
I also think it's really important that this was an affordable conference. I mean, for a lot of us, we have limited budgets with regard to professional development, and this was really doable. Like, we were able to keep the costs down. We were able to provide a lot of resources. We were able to feed people for a couple of days thanks to the national organization and the minimal registration fee. And for a lot of people, they wouldn't be able to go to Milwaukee. And so this is going to be their taste of HighEdWeb, and it's one of their main professional development opportunities in the year.
Budget and resources is a good thing to talk about because for many web professionals, or people who might consider themselves web professionals, it may not be their primary job, right?
Right. And
so for someone like me, who I gave my disclaimer at the beginning of my talk, I'm a communications professional first and a web professional second. I'm going to go to my communications conference, and I'm probably not going to have the budget to go to a second conference, and so I have to pick and choose. And if there's something regionally that I can drive to, of course it's nice when it's on the campus I work on, but even if this had been a couple hours away, it would have been doable. So I agree with your point there, that having a regional like that makes it easy for people who it may not be 100% of their job, and even if they have money to go to a conference, this HighEdWeb may not be the one they get to go to.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it was how I actually got involved with HighEdWeb back when one of my first conferences was a regional in New York, the first year they did regionals. And so it really introduced me to, even if I'm not there, checking the back channel and learn and getting to see what's happening and then scooping up the slides as they go live and stuff like that. So even though I'm not there or I can't make it or whatever, I still have I've found all of these great resources that are available after the fact, and I can join into the conversations as they're happening. And so I want to jump into kind of the different trends you saw emerging. We were chatting a little bit beforehand, and I really want to highlight one that we've been talking a lot about, and that is the accessibility trend that has been kind of spiking throughout all different conferences. And with the Americans with Disability Act celebrating their 25th anniversary, I think it's a huge and very timely topic to kind of address. So can you guys talk a little bit of the trends and focus a little bit on what kind of accessibility talks you saw?
So accessibility was definitely probably our number one trend. We had 2 different talks. Rachel presented about how to make a case for accessibility, which was amazing. And then another person on campus here talked about basically the tools, evaluating the tools you can use to implement accessibility. And so that was great. But I mean, in proposals, we probably had like 4, 5, 6 accessibility proposals, which was amazing. And so it was hard, it was hard to pick which one we go with. And so, and which ones would serve the biggest, the broadest audience. And so accessibility was definitely big. And a lot of folks were also talking about it on the back channel. And we had, Jay made a comment about Accessible-geddon or something like that. And they were basically talking about how, now Google will basically punish you if you're not mobile friendly, or maybe if you're not secure.
Mobile-geddon.
So mobile-geddon. And so, we were talking about how wouldn't it be awesome if they would punish you if you weren't accessible. And so that was a discussion going on in person and on Twitter, which was great. And so accessibility was definitely number one.
And it's a concern that a lot of people have at their different campuses, and it's something that can be really intimidating to start pursuing. And so since the University of Alabama has just launched our web accessibility initiative, and we were able to share some of the things we've been doing and learn from the other schools that were there. And our, the vendors who were present mentioned accessibility and the things they talked about. It came up in the responsive design session from our speaker from New York. It came up in a lot of different areas, and it's something that really matters. I mean, all of the things we're talking about matter, but from a civil rights perspective, accessibility is a growing topic of discussion in higher ed. It's important, and there are people we're not reaching because we're not accessible. And that is changing, which makes me happy, which is awesome. Yay.
Yeah.
And like I said, the accessibility thing is something that we're seeing across the board, just really starting to pick up steam. And you see more and more. I was just at a conference last week that it was a huge trend as well. So Rachel, you presented on it. Could you give a little bit more about what you kind of presented on, and give them a little bit more a little bit bigger of a taste of the accessibility talk?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, I talked about what our responsibilities are in higher ed. So, and stop me, Erin, if I go on too long, because I can talk about this stuff forever. In 2010, the federal government informed all college and university presidents that it's now a requirement that we make our technology accessible. And through recent court cases and civil rights settlements, we finally are learning what they expect from us with regard to accessibility, which is the W3C's Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Most of the cases are pointing to 2.0 AA. And that can be intimidating for a web community that hasn't really done much with this yet. So what I talked about was, how do you make a plan as an institution? And what the Office of Civil Rights has said they want from us is for us to make a plan for how we're going to be accessible, show progress towards completing the plan, and keep an open communications channel with our users. So if someone can't get to your content, they need a way to let you know that that's a problem. On our campus, we worked with all the web teams to figure out a consensus, to find a way that we can all be on board to move forward. And we are going to do that over the next 4 years, which is a timeline that matches what a lot of other institutions are doing. Other things we talked about is, why does accessibility matter from a personal perspective? And we looked at some examples of how it can affect users when they can't use keyboard controls to access your content, or when they can't view the colors. And if you don't have sufficient color contrast, or you're conveying content through color, that's a challenge. Or what's the challenge when you don't have captioned videos? So those are some of the things that we talked through. And I think we had some really good ideas and good feedback, and we were actually able to make some connections between people in the room to try to come up with some state initiatives that can help Alabama as a state move forward with its accessibility, and some things to take back for the other areas too. Cool. Yeah.
So accessibility, was there another trend that you really saw kind of emerging, or was it really a lot about accessibility?
The other big one was definitely project management. We had several sessions that touched on it in various ways. So like Ryan Marks came and talked about different productivity tools that you can use to make yourself more efficient. And Caitlin from Delta State came and talked about, it was called How to Manage Your Workload Online. But essentially it was about how to implement basically, I guess, a project request form that turns into a ticketing system, so that you can manage your workload through that way, through digitally online, and to kind of make things flow smoother and stuff like that. There's a lot of great statistics and analytics that you can get out of online ticketing systems that can really help you not only make yourself more efficient, but as you grow to make arguments for maybe new tools or new resources you need. Look at all these things that we're doing, and maybe if we implement this tool, we can do it faster, stuff like that. Jay Massey from West Florida came and basically shared this amazing presentation about how he did this like 50,000 site or 50,000 page migration with like 2 people. And so, like, you know, that was just insane, mind-blowing. He had this crazy mind map that he printed out and hung on the wall, and we were all just kind of big-eyed, and so that was really great. So project management was probably number 2. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Another thing that I saw is how to, there was a lot of information of people sharing different tools that they found useful. So accessibility-wise, our colleagues from across campus, Melissa Green in the libraries and Ken Smalley in the College of Human and Environmental Sciences, shared free tools that are available to check accessibility. And other people were sharing how do you use the free things that are out there in professional ways, and that was really great too.
Yeah.
So the session that'll be at the national, the other session that'll be at the national conference talked about some of that, didn't they? Will Jones?
Will talked about basically Will was probably the most technical session. I had several people come up and tell me they were very wide-eyed.
I didn't understand any of it. I'm not.
Will. For the developers in the room, it was really cool. I had seen his session before, and I actually used 3 out of 4 of the things he talked about. But he basically talked about Bower and Grunt and Angular and Node or GitHub. Did he talk about GitHub? Okay. He talked about different tools that you can use to basically, you know, process your code and minify it and compress it and things like that to help with your workflow and help make your site faster and help make your workflow faster, which was really cool. And so, if anything, I hope some people in the room at least wrote down stuff that they can take home and then research it and figure it out, because it may take you a little bit to figure it out, but once you can, it's some really cool tools that you can use. I love them.
Yeah. Backtracking a little bit, both of you mentioned accessibility tools that were available for free, and then also some project management tools. What were some of the more popular tools that were mentioned and received good feedback or were mentioned a couple times?
From the accessibility perspective, one of the things that came up several times was a tool that's provided by an organization called Web Accessibility in Mind. It's WebAIM, webaim.org, and they have a tool called the Web Accessibility Evaluator, and it runs either as a browser extension for Chrome or Firefox, or it can run on their site. And they even have a new API version that's available, but it will evaluate against different web accessibility standards and can produce a list for you, or it can show you on an individual web page where certain errors are happening. It also evaluates color contrast and allows you to turn on and off styles so you can check reading order. It's a pretty cool tool. That was a big one, and we talked about some of the other things that are available. There were some screen reader emulator tools that we talked about. One that's called Fangs that shows you what a screen reader will read. Yeah, Fangs. It's called Fangs. I don't know. And we also looked at some of the ones, the functional accessibility evaluator that's out of Illinois that allows you to do some checking as well. It does some really neat things for if we had an art librarian there who wanted to evaluate the alt text for these art pieces, right? So you have a lot of alt text there. And so this tool will allow you to show the text equivalence. So you can look at your entire screen and essentially read what a screen reader user would read. And it lets you view in context how your page looks from an alt text perspective. It's pretty cool. It is pretty cool. I was excited about it. So, what are some of the project management tools or other project tools that got talked about too?
I sat in on that session. He talked a lot about, he shared about Google Docs. He did a really good job of, like, one of the big perks of Google Docs is that you can do real-time collaboration. And so he basically did a demo during the session, which was funny because I come in there and I sit down, and the presenter and I, we actually lead a local community. And so we talk on Slack a lot, which is another tool that's pretty cool. It's a very great communication software. So I get this, ping on my phone where he sent me a Slack message, and it's a link. And in my mind, my first thought is, oh, he's sending me the link to his slides so I can put them on the website, so whatever. So I don't even think about too much about it. I don't even click on it. And so he's going through his presentation and he's talking about Google Docs and he goes, I've sent a link to this document to several people in the room. And I'm like, oh, and so I pull it up. And so I don't know who else he sent it to, but they were kind of doing some collaboration in the document. And by the time that I was able to pull it up and start editing it, I just went to the top of the document and wrote in all caps, like, hi, everybody, and, whatever. And so he's like, oh, there's Rachel. Hi, Rachel. And, so Google Docs, Slack. I kind of shared Text Expander is this great snippet tool that I use that I depend on. He talked about some password managers. So he talked about LastPass, and I recommend 1Password. Something that I think he forgot to touch on that I forgot when we were doing Q&A that I would have mentioned are things like automation tools like Zapier and IFTTT, stuff like that. Things that can help you kind of schedule these workflows. Like, for example, being able to, tools like that can detect when a tweet with a certain search, it happens, and then from that, it will automatically send emails to people or automatically post the tweet to Facebook those are just very basic ideas. I had this funny conversation one time with somebody about how, wouldn't it be cool if we set this workflow up that turned on a camera and fed your dog and did all this stuff. And there's some pretty cool things that you can do with that software, and kind of the sky's the limit. And so if you can implement some of those automations to help you with your workflow, then you can save hours, and so that stuff's pretty cool. And so I recommend that. There's also, we talked about some kind of quick video chatting software. So we're a pretty big campus, and so sometimes when you just want to have a quick meeting and it's not worth, or not necessarily worth, but in order to have a meeting with Rachel, I'd probably have to have a 15-minute walk over to her office, not including the 15-minute walk back. Instead, we can hop on all these video chatting tools and just meet virtually and, not have to get out in the hot sun because we live in the South and it's very hot. And so we talked about Appear, which is really great, appear.in. There's obviously also Google Hangouts and stuff like that. There's lots of options. So stuff like that. There's a lot of great tools out there that can help you.
Those for organization too. What was the Asana?
We used Asana, task management. He also touched on Todoist, which is another kind of task management, to-do list type software that can really come in handy. I think he touched on Redbooth. There's also Basecamp, which is great project management. And some of these are free, and some of these aren't, and some of these have free versions or premium versions. And it's all kind of what's worth to you, you can get a lot of stuff for free. And then some of the stuff is just well, it's totally worth it to me to spend, that little bit extra a month because it helps me do my job so much faster or so much better. So it's kind of, up to the person to figure that out. But lots of tools out there.
Yeah. No, definitely. I'm making a mental note of some of the screen accessibility ones because I don't deal with it personally, but I love seeing, especially since I wear glasses and working on a screen all the time, I can see how my vision is slowly getting worse. And so I totally appreciate the attention to detail for even just my minor inconvenience of needing glasses and that kind of stuff. But Andrew, so you were a speaker and an attendee. So can you kind of give me a little bit of what the vibe was and then a little bit into what you talked about?
Yeah, the vibe I think was very excited. I don't know if, and maybe y'all could answer this better, but I felt like there were a lot of, as a communications person, a lot of communications people there who maybe did a little bit of web or that sort of thing. So so I felt like there was a lot of my brethren, and so that was nice. But a lot of people, I think there was just a huge variety of skill level when it comes to web stuff. I mean, there were people who clearly they were just the most tech savvy person in their office, and so they wanted to learn more, which is great. So they were certainly really excited to be there. And then there were all the way up to people like Rachel who have WordPress plugins and all that sort of thing, and understand all of the more programmatic programmer side of stuff. So it was really cool to have that wide range of people there and be able to bounce ideas off of one another and that sort of thing. As far as my talk, it was about I think it was making the case for the web professional. So I think I first heard that title maybe a year or two ago. I guess it's been a little bit longer, maybe a couple, 2-3 years, and I really, really liked it because when you talk about, I've been building websites since I was in middle school. I mean, I started on Notepad. My first main website was a GeoCities Star Wars website, like the most stereotypical website ever, right? And it was just like, it was literally nothing but animated GIFs of TIE fighters and stuff.
Nice. That's great. Yeah.
So, I've been doing it for a long time, but you start to see lots of terms thrown around like web developer, web designer, full stack developer. Like there's just all these sort of content specialists. There's all sorts of web related skill sets and titles and all that sort of stuff. In a higher ed, we don't tend to see all of those represented necessarily, but all of those skills are represented in a lot of people's different day-to-day duties, right? So I really like the web professional term as a very all-encompassing term. And I think that more and more we're finally starting to see universities, at the very least this university, embrace the need for people who know what they're doing. And that's sort of what my talk was about was, even if you're a web professional, you at least know that accessibility is something to think about, right? You may not be an expert in it, but you at least know that accessibility is important. You have probably heard of PHP and JavaScript, and even if you can't do anything with them, you at least know they exist and that they're things. Whereas, traditionally, I feel like websites have been maintained, 10 years ago, where they either came from tech up, so like the guy who ran the server was also updating the website, or totally the other way, where a program assistant on campus who really knew nothing about websites was trying their best to make updates and that sort of thing. And so I think we're finally getting to the point where we're meeting in the middle here, where there are people who that is their skill set is they start with web and they may go one way or the other, right? They may lean more tech, or they may lean more content, or they may lean more programming, but they at least have the well-rounded knowledge of all of these things that a web professional should, and they can make the case to the administration, to their department, whoever, that these are the things that need to happen to make our website valuable. And that's really what the talk was about.
No, that sounds like an awesome talk. I'm a social media manager, and I don't necessarily work on websites a lot, but I do work on websites from time to time, and I do things in my own time. So I think web professionals is a really great way to say I am involved with web work. What doesn't necessarily mean that I can build you a whole website from completely scratch, but if you need me to do some things, I really like that. That sounds like a great talk, and I would have definitely loved to see it.
Yeah, you've also got contacts. So even if you don't know how to do something right, you've made this net of web professional contacts that you know who to chat with if you do need something done. And that's it.
And I also love the overlap that definitely is becoming way more prevalent in these conferences, is that a web professional may also be a communication professional, and they're not completely separate entities anymore. The person that writes the copy for the website doesn't have to be the same, doesn't need to know absolutely nothing about the website. They actually could be the person that updates the copy. And so that's another, I really love that talk. And I love that word. I love web professional because it's committing, but it's not too commitment where I say, oh, I can build you a website from scratch.
That session also, I intentionally made it very, very discussion oriented. And so a lot of people ended up complaining about the things that they disliked about their department or organization, but it was really cathartic. I think people really, actually that was the biggest comment I had, was people coming up to me being like, I didn't know that other people were going through this. I didn't know that other people were struggling with these same issues. Thank you so much for just letting us talk to each other about it. Because you go to these sort of conferences and you sit through the sessions and people are just telling you, here's things you can do, here's information, here's knowledge, and it's not always a two-way dialogue. And that's obviously, you won't want every session to be that way, but having a session or two where people get to groan and moan a little bit, I think was valuable for some people.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
no doubt.
And that's part of what this was, there are people that I met through this conference that we're friends now. And we may have similar roles, we may have very different roles, in higher ed, but we're able to see the connections that exist between, whatever our different responsibilities are. And that's how we make it so those pain points get dealt with, right?
Yeah.
Is by being web professionals who work together and make a case for who we are and what we do.
Andrew's talked about this before with some of our local folks, and I like the notion of, in this whole dialogue, of that we're not just web professionals, but that we're also higher education web professionals, which is a really great point, because it's like you can work in a department and people can just see you as the IT person, basically, because they think that you're just a tech person over here doing tech things. But, we bring value to the table because we're not just web, we do the web stuff, but we know a lot about higher education, and we work in higher education, and we bring value in what we do and what we know to the websites because of our history with the universities and then the various universities. This is my third university that I've worked at. And so I like that aspect of that whole dialogue conversation.
So one of the biggest things, and I actually didn't even have this on my slides, I just mentioned it, was talking about web committees. So committees of faculty, and not for projects like accessibility where it's like you want buy-in and stuff. It's just like, no, there's just this committee that oversees websites, and then it was one of the biggest things that people just sort of like, yes, this is super frustrating, but that's something that's really unique to higher ed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that only we have to deal with for the most part. So yeah, I think it's very valuable to talk about that stuff too.
And we do have, the world of higher ed is unique on a lot of levels.
Yep.
We all are, a lot of us work for public institutions, and so a lot of us work for the state, right? And so that brings its own special challenges, and that was really insightful to talk with other people from other states and other state institutions and try and see where we overlap. Like, how do you deal with this challenge or that challenge? Yeah.
Most definitely.
No, everything that you're saying definitely hits home.
That's how the talk felt. Yeah, everybody was like, yes, that.
Like you said, it's another thing to highlight about these regional conferences is that you get that more. That's what I like to say when I come back from a conference is you go to sessions that teach you a new thing and you're like, oh my gosh, why haven't we been doing this all the time? And you go to other sessions, it's kind of like a gut check where you're like, oh, okay, like I'm not alone, or I'm not, this is not only my problem. It's not nice. It's not only at my university. Here's how people across the country are dealing with it and handling it at their own university, which is always really comforting, I think, at least. And so let's talk a little bit about your keynote. Can you tell us a little bit more about him? I know Rachel seemed really excited. I saw you posting about being able to eat lunch with him and stuff like that.
By the way, you weren't like, hey, Andrew, come. You probably want to eat lunch with him too.
I didn't see a table where there was enough for 3 of us, and then I kind of got like the vibe that maybe he just wanted to kind of sit by himself. So I know you're teasing, but that was so cool. I was trying to
yeah, but they don't say who he was. Yeah.
So he was James Spann, and if you're not from around here, he is a big deal. It's really funny why he's a big deal. I mean, not about funny, but just different. But he's a local weatherman, and he's a weatherman for ABC 3340 in Birmingham, Alabama, which is about an hour away, an hour east of here. And but he's a big deal because he's such a great person, and he's this great communicator. And you can tell that he genuinely cares about his audience and the people in his area of which he conveys the weather to. And he's always kind of, from as long as I can remember, he's always been kind of a big deal. Yeah. But he became an even bigger deal like 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. We had a horrible F5 tornado come through Tuscaloosa. Actually, came through the whole state. Throughout the whole state, about like 250 people were killed by this tornado. About in the 50s, 54 in Tuscaloosa alone. And so it was a big day here, and his efforts to share all that and kind of carry throughout the day all those events and help people try to get safe and get to safe location and things like that. It just is a day that people in Alabama will never forget. and so through that, he even got even bigger. And but he was very passionate. He was excited. He was excited.
Yeah.
He was excited.
He did a great job.
He did an amazing job. He got so amped up over. You can tell that he loves what he does, which is part of what he talked about. He talked about being passionate about what you do, and if you're not passionate, then you should probably get a new job. And so you could tell. I mean, it was just so great because you could tell he's so passionate about what he does, and he loves the weather. But more so than that, he's a geek. Like, he is a tech geek.
That's what stood out to me was he said that he's, at least on Twitter, and maybe I don't know if he was talking about just Twitter or all social media, but he's the most, if you go by followers, the most popular local news broadcaster in the country. He has the most Twitter followers of any local news broadcaster.
Nearly 150,000.
Yeah.
Well, I think that somebody was telling me I had the number wrong, but now he has like 200,000 something followers. I mean, you can find him. His hashtag is just SPANN, SPANN.
Yeah.
But he's also crazy popular, on Facebook. I think he's on Instagram too. So
he's on everything, and that's actually what was so great about him. Yeah. Was that he was on Periscope. Like, this is.
Yeah, he was trying to recruit people to Periscope.
He doesn't look that old. But he's got to be getting a little up there, right? And but he's just like embracing new technology as soon as it comes out, and it's really fascinating.
He made the point that if you try to decide where you're going to meet your audience or your stakeholders or whatever, then you're going about it wrong.
Right.
You have to find where they are, and that's where you go.
Right.
And he really.
He was so cool.
And he also, he is, and he really has embraced, in the world of broadcast journalism, things are changing. And he pointed out that within our world, very few of us actually turn on the news at 6 o'clock, right? We don't click the TV and make it happen and watch this awful commercials and all that. Really? Yeah. I don't have the internet where I live, right? So I live in the country. Yeah. Anyway, so I do have to turn on James Spann every now. But he said that, most people are actually getting their information through all sorts of digital outlets, and they don't embrace broadcast journalism as much. And so he's going to where the people are because what he has to say is important. His communication needs to happen, and so he's finding people where they are.
Yeah, and I think he made it clear that he was not interested in trying to prop up broadcast journalism as long as he could. He was interested in getting that message to the people. And, in a lot of ways it goes a little bit back to the April 11th stuff, that he blames himself for how bad things were. Now, of course, we can take a step back from where we are and say, well, probably way fewer people died because of him.
Yes.
But to him, he puts a lot of the deaths that did occur on himself. And it's because he cares more about getting his message out than his job or the place he works for or that sort of thing. He's more passionate about people than he is about organizations or anything else. So.
He also made a really great point about professional egos and how a lot of us get our ego wrapped up in what we do, and if someone doesn't like the message we have or they don't like how we do something, they can hurt our ego, right? And he made the point that he keeps a folder of hate mail on his computer, and when he starts feeling uppity, right, he goes and reads these messages to remind himself that nobody is ever universally loved. And, what's important is getting the job done, getting the communications out there. And, some ladies are going to get upset when you interrupt the soap operas to tell them the weather. It's just how it is. So, it was a great story.
Yeah.
Yes, he had lots of great stories. He told me this great story that I have to share because if you're an Alabama person, then you're just like, whoa. But around here, we have, Bear Bryant, who's a big coach to do around here, and we've got statues everywhere around here. And
football, by the way.
Yeah, football coach. So, yeah. And he told me that when he grew up in Tuscaloosa, that James Beam grew up here, and he said when he was a kid, he was like running around his neighborhood and like literally ran into Bear Bryant. Like, I guess he was playing or something, I don't know. And that Bear Bryant turned to him and said, "Son, more of my boys ran like that, we'd win more football games. I was like, oh my God, that's like the best story.
That's
And
awesome.
that was so amazing.
Rachel was so excited to eat lunch with James Spann.
I got to eat
She
lunch.
said it was maybe your favorite lunch date ever.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So I won't forget that one for a while. He was just really cool to chat with. He's really down to earth. And he's very humble, and he just had story after story, and he was just really cool to chat with.
He did a great job.
It's amazing how much that man does.
Yeah.
What did he call him? He called himself the Southeastern Distributor of Busy.
Something like that,
Yeah. But he has a blog post. You go on his website, and where he details like his day-to-day schedule. And the man like wakes up at 4:00 every morning and records all these YouTube videos, and then he has to record all these radio things, and then like I think he gets like 4 hours of sleep each night or something like that. It was just it's insane. Oh, yeah, he's impressive.
That is impressive. Well, it sounded like he definitely shared a lot of things that you could draw parallels to what we're doing in higher ed. So I have one last question for you guys. And so all the regionals are over for HighEdWeb. The nationals is coming up in Milwaukee, and that is I can't remember the dates. Oh, October 4th to 7th, and that'll be in Milwaukee, and that's the national. And just a quick plug there, I'm excited about this one because Bill Nye is coming back to be the keynote, which is totally exciting. So that there are no more regionals to attend, but there is a national. But for people that are looking or think that they want bring something like this to them, do you have any advice for people who are interested in hosting a regional conference, or just even generally a conference that may bring web professionals from higher ed or communication people from higher ed all in one place to kind of get the same opportunity to learn and pick each other's brains?
I would like the first thing that pops in my mind is if you want to put together an event like this, it's just having a great team to help you because it's a lot of work. I mean, this was definitely the biggest event that I've ever planned, and it was a lot of fun. But you sort of realize how much goes into it. You think, or at least you think that you realize how much goes into it. And then you get into it and you realize, oh crap, there's so much to do. And so you have those people on your team that, that have initiative and have drive and that are passionate about it too. Because there's a big difference between just having someone helping you and having someone help you who's passionate about the same, things that you want. Mm-hmm. And so I definitely had a great team, and so. I would definitely recommend that you focus on your team and who they are, and make sure you're on the same page. Mm-hmm. Also, we had a lot of help from the university here. All the venues were donated in kind, and that was just this great. They were really cool with us putting on this event, and all we had to do was ask. And so many things happened.
That's what I suggest is no matter if you're putting together. I enjoy doing things like this. Glutton for punishment. I enjoy. On conferences and hosting events and helping to plan them. But what I've always found is, whatever it is you need or want, ask and let them decide to say no. But we were able to get so much donated from campus groups, from different offices around town, from different companies to make this conference a better event for everyone. Yeah. And that really, really helped with everything. I would also suggest whatever venue you're using, confirm that you have the reservation down on the calendar monthly before you get there. We had a room get double booked the Friday before the event, one of our main breakout rooms, and we had to.
This is a very stressful couple hours on Friday.
It really was, and we had to work very closely with some campus groups who were going to use the room. They were kind enough to relocate, which was nice.
Yes,
but. Yeah, so we had a couple of venue weirdnesses like that.
So you definitely constantly check in with your venues.
Yes.
Because that was crazy. But it all worked out. Yeah, it all worked out. All was well in the end. It was just, I think I tweeted on Friday, can we limit the 2 days before an event heart attacks to 1?
Exactly.
That would be great.
Exactly.
Let's calm down.
And make sure you attend a session. Like if you're attend sessions, even if you're on the conference team. I mean, we had people who served as room managers who were on the conference, and so they were able to stay in the rooms. But a lot of us were involved in making sure the catering got done, making sure the digital signage was correct, getting, umbrellas back to people who lost them, all of those things. But it really was great to actually be able to sit down in the session and see all of this come to fruition. It was really, really wonderful.
Pretty much, I feel like we were a pretty well-oiled machine. So pretty much by like after lunch on Monday, that was the hump, and it was like, okay, y'all go see sessions. Like we're done. And Tuesday, I think we all sat in sessions all morning on Tuesday. So it was like so we had this great team, and that helped. It was great. It was really awesome.
I have two quick things. First, having some sort of celebrity speaker actually helps. It's kind of embracing the HighEdWeb, like having Chris Hardwick the other year, and Waz, you said. Who was the other one missing? But anyway, having some sort of, in Tuscaloosa or now in this region, James Spann is just as big as any of those people.
Yeah,
right?
Around here
He's our local Bill Nye.
Yeah. Right. And so speaking of Bill Nye, that's my other point. Bill Nye, it's all on Netflix now. So if you want to go watch all the old Bill Nye stuff, it's all on Netflix.
Nice.
And also, the producer of Bill Nye the Science Guy actually works here on campus in the Digital Media Center. She was Elizabeth Brock, was the producer of that for I think its entire run. So just a quick cool fact.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you guys first for joining me. We're reaching the end of our time limit, and so I want to thank, as always, our program supporter, M. Stoner. And again, thank you to my guests, Rachel and Andrew, for joining me today. And thank you for everyone who tuned in and hanging out with us today. So next week, I want to just send out a quick reminder, Wednesday, July 8th at 1 p.m., we'll have Student Affairs Live, and we'll be chatting trends in academic advising with National Academic Advising Association's Executive Director, Charlie Nutt. And so that'll be same time next week, and hopefully you can join Higher Ed Live then as well. I'm Erin Sapinka signing off, and have a great rest of your Wednesday.